And it's young people like us that are most severely affected by the global and domestic crisis. Millions of American youth are stuck in a cycle of low-wage, short-term service sector jobs. The good-paying industrial jobs that once defined the American middle class, the so-called American dream, those jobs are gone. Neighborhoods that were once prosperous are now dotted with empty, foreclosed homes. Now, in the media and in personal conversations, it's been trendy to start bashing millennials, right? We've all heard about this lazy generation of young people with their phones who never get anything done. Well, I'm here to tell you that the reason that so many young people are not getting married and buying houses and buying cars, it's not because of some defect in the younger generation. It has a lot to do with economics. It's a lot harder to survive in the world. Don't tell me millennials are lazy. If you get together any group of young people, you'll find people who will work long hours, sweeping floors, serving coffee, or lugging boxes around. They bust their ass for $6 or $7 an hour. They get yelled at by a boss the whole time, driven to work harder. Their schedules are inconsistent. Their hours go up and down each week. And finally, after a long shift, do they get to just go home and sleep? Do they get to just put their feet up? They get to go have a beer? No. That's when it's time to leave, and then they get their book bag, and they get their laptop, and they go to class. And they run up more student debt in the hopes that maybe, if they can just get that degree, they might be able to get a job that pays enough that they can actually be an adult and get a house of their own and actually have what was considered to be a normal life at one point in this country. Now, it's funny, back in the 70s and 80s, college kids used to smoke pot and do hallucinogens and zone out and get high. Now, I'm certain that that hasn't exactly stopped. But back then, college was a time to find yourself and figure out who you are. But the college students of today, they snort Adderall, not so they can expand their minds and get high, but so they can stay awake all night and cram for their exams. Many of the youth today are more worried about finding out how they can survive and support themselves after graduation than they are about figuring out who they are in some vague philosophical sense. The kind of pressure that young people, and I really should say the kind of pressure that young workers are under in this low-wage economy is astronomical. You wonder why we constantly hear about someone losing their mind and shooting up the place, right? You wonder why the suicide rate is so high. And I certainly can't forget to mention the rising police state in this country right now. The National Security Agency has declared its right to tap our phones and read our emails. The president has declared that he has the right to kill civilians with drones, even if they're U.S. citizens, right? Obama puts your name on a list, he thinks about it, he prays about it, he has a conversation, and then you're dead. No judge, no jury, nothing. The Black Lives Matter movement is absolutely progressive. African Americans continue to be killed by police officers, shot sometimes almost randomly. And after an innocent black youth is killed, the police are almost routinely or just automatically acquitted. Just like President Obama with his drone strike program, the police have been given a license to kill, and the main target is African Americans. The black community, or the black nation in the United States, I should say, simply cannot take the way things are any longer. Rebellions are erupting across the country. And when it comes to the issue of the police state, a lot of white people can't bring themselves to admit what's going on. They can't stomach how bad it actually is, so they make a lot of excuses. They try to avoid the ugly reality of what's happening so routinely. The police state is coming down most viciously on African Americans, but don't think for a moment that your rights are safeguarded and permanently protected just because you're white. The millions of white people in this country desperately need to understand that opposing police brutality and racism isn't just a matter of doing what's right. It's not a white guilt thing. What they do to black and brown people today, they can do to you tomorrow. The worse the economy gets, the more vicious the police state is going to become. And right now, there's a section of the police and the military, and a section of both of the major parties, who thinks that the way to solve this crisis is to create an all-out fascist state. And things are gradually moving in that direction. Recently, it was revealed that Hillary Clinton actually talked about killing Julian Assange with a drone strike. Did people hear about that? Well, she says it was a joke. Now, I'm never claimed to be an expert on comedy. I'm not a funny guy. But I'm not really laughing at that. I don't find it to be funny, the idea that you would kill a famous whistleblower. The crisis is every day intensifying, not just in this country, but across most of the planet. While the global situation gets worse, the US media continues to distract us by focusing on this nonstop circus, this election. I'm not going to say too much about it. I have a feeling that most people here realize that the choice between the status quo plus endless wars and the other option, bigotry, racism, and hate, is not really a choice at all.